Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hospitable Hosts podcast. I'm Brian, sales executive at Hospitable, an Inc. 5000 company that gifts hosts their valuable time back. I'm joined today by Kelvin Mah, founder and CEO of Rankbreeze. It's a tool that helps you squeeze more out of your listings and launch new listings with best practices. Hey Kelvin, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. It's always nice to chat with you. Where are you calling from today?
Hey, everybody. I'm calling from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Nice, that's awesome. So I know you've previously helped businesses and brands grow throughout your career in different industries outside of hospitality. How did you initially get into short-term rentals, and what's kind of the background there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably just like you, just sort of fell into short-term rentals. You don't really go to school for this typically, unless you go to Cornell. You might take some hospitality as maybe part of your bachelor's degree there. But yeah, I kind of fell into this by just sort of getting attracted to the short-term rental space. I was working as a director of content at another business, and yeah, just put a property up online. It was doing okay, I would say, and then quickly I sort of tried to understand a little bit more about Airbnb and how it works, because I think initially when you get started with a property, there is a lot of consideration into the design, into the guest experience, how the guest also arrives at your property. Of course, is maybe the most important thing, right? Those check-in instructions are very crucial there. But once you spin up a property and it's been there for, I don't know, a month or two, you kind of start to look at a little bit more of the optimization aspects of running a short term rental. And pretty much the first thing I was doing was, okay, I'm not getting any bookings. What's going on? Uh, so I went to go find myself on the map there, and I was visible, but I would check it, and then I kind of was looking at the calendar and trying to understand, okay, well, where am I being found for these different date ranges and for the different guest counts that we have. So for example, 4 guests, how am I performing for first guest, second guest, third guest, fourth guest? And yeah, I just started running a bunch of experiments and actually started to write about it on a blog. And that's kind of the beginning of how Rankbreeze sort of came about. It came from a blog in reality, because we were just writing about different experiments. Essentially, part of it was also looking at the way that other people were optimizing their listings, and they were quite often talking about rankings. And I was having quite a difficult time tracking my rankings in general. So that is sort of the beginning of how Rankbreeze started there. And my background's in search engine optimization, so it was sort of a very I'm not sure if it was one of those situations where, if you have a hammer, you're just constantly looking for things to hammer. But if SEO happens to be the hammer, it kind of worked. So it made sense to dive into this a little bit deeper and learn more about the Airbnb search engine, because that's what it is. And I don't think a lot of people do realize that a lot of these platforms, they're really just marketplace search engines.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I feel like your background is pretty well suited for that. If it's SEO, that's definitely a lot what Airbnb offers and some of the other listing sites. So you started with Airbnb, is that right? What year was that you started your listing?
That would have been in 2017. I think it was 2017. So
Okay.
a while back
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So I know Rankbreeze. Like I've used Rankbreeze personally. I know a lot of our customers have used Rankbreeze. Um, if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about, like, there's a few different moving pieces to Rankbreeze, like what's all involved, and can you break down the areas of the improvement where hosts who reach out to Rankbreeze, like what can they expect as far as like the different parts of what can be optimized in their listings?
sure. Yeah. So we've been doing this since 2019, essentially, and uh, uh, the three things that I like to tell people that we do would be rank optimization is the first pillar. The second pillar is price optimization, and the third is market data. So those three things essentially encompass what we focus on at Rankbreeze and try to improve over time. Of course, our first pillar was rank optimization, given the name Rankbreeze, and then we added now dynamic pricing, which we have as an integration with Hospitable. And then third is market data, which we call our market scanner. It's essentially a Chrome extension where you can go and look at any property on Airbnb to try and get some quick statistics. Really, it's quick data around individual properties and how much they're earning, what their occupancy rates are. And then once you position the map, you can press another button and that'll pull in all the properties in the area to build a custom report based on how you've positioned the map. So yeah, in terms of rank optimization, though, that's typically why people do kind of search us out. And rank optimization involves probably two working pieces. There's the rankings data. So how am I being where is my listing being found for different date ranges and guest counts? So tracking that stuff for you and visualizing that data for you. That's the first part of it. And then the second part is our optimization hub. And the optimization hub is a set of listing optimization tools that essentially, they help you with listing optimization. So they recommend certain things for what you might want to use for your title and your description. So we pull that we essentially look at the top ranking properties in your area, in the city, and also in your radius, reverse engineer those and give you some ideas for description keywords, for title keywords, as well as some examples of how these things might fit into your description using AI. And then we have an amenities analyzer too, which again looks at top ranking properties in the area, looks at what they have, and then cross references what you have on your property to tell you that you may want to add these in if they're not added in, or you may want to consider turning them on if you don't have them turned on. People just have things turned off randomly for sometimes. And then and then finally we also have a review analyzer in the optimization hub. And the review analyzer essentially looks at the competitors' reviews around you and pulls out review snippets to try to give you an understanding of what people are saying about properties around you that are similar listings to yours, so that you can understand more about the guests who ultimately didn't book your property. Because what happens is when somebody searches for a listing and they click on your listing and then they close that listing, your listing, it doesn't mean that they stopped looking. They're still looking for a property. They're going to find a place to stay. And if it's not yours and they end up staying at another property that's nearby yours, at least you can benefit from that afterwards to learn more about why they decided to book that place. And you can use that to either make decisions around your amenities, which are important, or you can just use it for copywriting too. There's all sorts of different ways. It's kind of a very flexible tool for listing optimization. I find, and not a lot of people really. I find it's a tool that gets missed in our optimization hub, but I do find it very valuable just because it's great for copywriting. It's great for improving your listing because there's just so many different insights that you can get about people that didn't book your property but booked your competitors' properties.
So I think at the end of the day, hosts care about revenue, right? So like we want to bring in more revenue from your listing. So how exactly, can we bridge the gap between the data that you guys are bringing in as far as like all the rank optimization tools and then earning more revenue? So are there specific steps that a host would take once they start using Rankbreeze to kind of track what that change looks like in their actual listing?
Yes, exactly. There certainly is. Well, I guess I sort of forgot to mention another part of the ranking section, which is our A/B testing, A/B testing tool. So thanks, Brian, for guiding me in that direction there. When you first use Rankbreeze, it's pretty simple. You just sign up, and then you'll essentially copy and paste your listing URL. So wherever people end up. So when guests book your property, you just take that URL and the HTTPS airbnb.com/homes, rooms, I think it is, and then your room ID. That URL where guests are booking, you add that into Rankbreeze, and then that's when we start to collect data around your property and looking at your custom calendar, and then also looking at your competitors and top ranking properties in your area to start formulating data for your rankings data, and then also for the optimization hub. Now, the first thing that makes sense is actually not doing anything. You really want to kind of get some data in first before you start making any drastic changes. Sometimes people do sign up for us and they have great rankings. So there's actually like nothing in a sense for us to do to help them. And that's okay. I mean, that's how it is. And that's what the data says. But for those folks who have never seen what your rankings might look like, they do bounce around quite a bit. So leaving some time to just get a general sense for whether you are trending up or down is going to be helpful for you. Once you add your properties into Rankbreeze, I would give it about a week or so to just get the data flowing in and trying to see a trend line. And then you can also head into the optimization hub and look at some of the suggestions that are provided there in terms of keywords, amenities, and the review analysis of your competitors, and then trying to essentially put together a little bit of a plan for how to improve your listing based on those recommendations. There, you can take those recommendations and use our A/B testing tool and essentially log a change to see whether or not that change made an improvement to your listing or not. So, for example, let's say you go and look at the first tool, which is like kind of our keyword ideas tool, and it's suggesting a different title. So you can take a portion of that title, add it into the very beginning of your title. So I would not add it at the end. I would actually add it at the very beginning, and then once you make that change, you can essentially track it inside of Rankbreeze, and you'll be able to tell on the charts whether or not it's moving up towards the right or down towards the bottom. It's kind of like a time scale, so you'll see things along over time as days go on. You'll essentially see, are my guest counts, are my different lines on my charts that represent each guest count, are they going up or are they going down? And then you can make adjustments along the way there. Maybe another thing too is that when you make those adjustments, it's a good idea not to make too many changes at the same time, just because then you can't really isolate what's impacting what's really impacting your listing optimization. If you do 30 different listing optimizations in a single day, it's just going to be very difficult to see which one of those really made a difference there. So isolating them and not doing too many listing optimizations, I would say one or two at most, and then again leaving it alone for a week is a good period is a good time too. And also in Rankbreeze, in the A/B testing section, you can choose a time frame for which you want to test for, and we'll track your performance along the way given that time frame. So if you want to track for 7 days, 14 days, for example, you'll be able to get a little time box for how you are performing at that time there.
That's pretty cool. So I know hosts, like you mentioned, you sign up and you really want to kind of dive into things and like make some changes. That's how I am. Like as a human being, I'm just like, I don't read directions when I put things together. I just open the box and start building everything. So
yeah,
it's kind of tough to like get into a new piece of software and not make any changes and see those changes like kind of take place over time. How often should hosts make changes in their listing? So let's just say you signed up, you made a few changes. Should you wait a week, a month? What's the general timeline for making changes and tracking that progress?
Yeah, I would say wait a week. Wait at least a week, because you might make a change on Monday and you're not getting any bookings, so you decide to change it on Wednesday, right? You're not really giving enough fair chance to let eyeballs, impressions grow, click-throughs grow, just because people are busy and they're, probably not doing as much searching on Airbnb Monday to Wednesday. They probably do it more on the weekends. Just giving it a fair chance, I think is important there. Only doing one or two at a time is also important there. I think another thing is probably the quality of the change is quite important as well. We've come across folks that maybe just don't exactly have the greatest eye for design, and that's okay. Everyone has their unique skills, but I think that's kind of part of it, right? Just because you change your photo does not exactly mean that you are going to perform better. That photo has to be pleasing to the majority of humans. I know that's like a very robotic way of saying something like that, but it's true. It has to be pleasing, and there has to be there's generally like standard photography rules as well that make photos more appealing, right? Like if you ever turn on your phone and you have you're using the camera to turn on the grid system there's the reason why the grid is there is so that it makes things very symmetrical. And symmetrical things are very pleasing for the human eye. So the quality of the change that you make is also very important to consider. And I guess part of Rankbreeze, we do have like a listing optimization service where we do things like where we essentially redo your listing description for you. I think the benefit of that I hope is conveyed to folks is that it is also like a third party opinion too. We look at tons of listings, so we're able to pick things up, but that's not really a push towards a service. You could ask your friend that as well, someone who has a great sense for great quality and design and things like that. You can also ask them about that before you make a decision. I think I'm really thinking of a specific example where somebody we hopped on a call and then they had just recently taken a picture of their door, I think, because they really like the stained glass on their door, which I think is very appealing to certain people, but it's not really the photo that you want to have as your cover photo. So and those are the types of judgments that I think can be helped on by other people, right? So sometimes it's okay to take a poll and get a little bit of recommendation, and then of course see how it works in the wild there, and you can track that change in Rankbreeze.
Got it. I was worried for a second there you were going to call out one of my listings and say how bad it was
No,
in front
never.
of all these people who were watching your listing. Sure. So you touched on images, so I'm kind of curious, do you have a hierarchy on what's most important, like images, text, amenities, things like that, as far as like what should hosts focus on first, what's the next lowest hanging fruit next, things like that?
Yeah, I can maybe do a high level, because I high level, and then maybe go into some more granular details, just because I think what I say will be quite standard in a way. So photos, title is very important, and pricing. Those are the three major levers that people tend to pull very, very often, and those do garner good results. Like if you have a bad photo and then you have a great photo afterwards, that's going to make a difference to your listing. But let's maybe, if we could dive deeper into photos and in terms of photo optimization, what that might mean is, well, of course, if you're not hiring a professional photographer, that is definitely the big thing that you should be doing, is hiring a pro first, because those guys know standard photography rules that you can lean on, just because not all of us are Michelangelos. So we need experts. We need experts to help us with that. But so that's the first thing. If you don't have that, that's kind of standard here. And I think potentially there's going to be people who there's certainly people who say, oh, of course I would do that, but there's people out there that don't think that way either. So if you're at least here listening to this podcast, hopefully you leave with a little bit of that. And then there's the thought around the ordering of it. How do I order my listing how do I order my photos to kind of give the um, to drive a click. That's essentially what you're looking for, right? When a person, if we were to break things down in terms of how people find you, they first of all they land on Airbnb. And a lot of traffic to Airbnb is also direct, by the way. So a lot of people just go straight to Airbnb and use that as a search engine. So they're going in, they're looking at the city, they may add in dates, and then typically they're going to have a guest count. Guest count, I guess, back in the day, the date ranges was very specific. That was almost like the one of the primary filters that you had to have in place. But now with Airbnb's new flexible type of searching, which I think is pretty cool, there's just a lot more variables there. But for the most part, they're entering a city, entering a date, and then they're entering a guest count. So once the person lands on Airbnb, they're presented with 18 different properties on the very first page there. So that's at a high level the city that's being presented to them at that time. Also, that's also what's represented in Rankbreeze as well. So if you go page by page by page there, that's kind of that city view is where is the type of rankings that Rankbreeze is tracking. But let's assume you've got your listing up there, and you've got your photos. We were talking about what are those items: photo, title, description. Photo, title, price, and then description. And the reason why I say that is because I am truly thinking about essentially a booking funnel, right? How does a person actually land and go and arrive to your listing to ultimately book your property? So there's conversion rates along the way. So once a person starts their search and they see your property, when there's a question of whether or not they're going to convert and click into your listing description or into your listing and open it up in a big view there. However, before they arrive there, depending on how savvy they are with Airbnb, it's very likely that they're going to go and look through your thumbnails first. So where they're going to look at your thumbnails in a very small format at the very beginning, and I think there's only 20 photos that you can actually have there that are displayed. So that is kind of maybe something that we've run into as well, is that you want over 35 photos. From the data that we've seen, it's you want to have at least 35 photos just to be competitive with other properties there. Interestingly enough, we've seen more photos does actually tend to correlate with higher rankings for folks as well. So we've seen between 35 to 60 photos, depending on the area. But yeah, going back, the guests, when they're searching on Airbnb, they're going to click those thumbnails first before they open up your property. And if your thumbnails, those top 20, people tend to think about the top 5 a lot, because when you open up Airbnb, those top 5 photos are presented in a gallery format. But it really is about that top 20 photos first, because you want to give a good walkthrough of your property. And for example, let's say you have a larger property and you've got some games outside. Spike ball, for example. You have a spike ball. You've got a spike ball outside. You've got cornhole. Is that what it's called? Where you're throwing the beanbag into there. So if that's a big part of your selling point, and it's past those 20 photos, you want to bring those closer up. I would say between 10 to 20, or I mean, if it's a really big selling part of your listing, bring those even further up there. Really, what you want to do is give people a good sense of your photos. You must within the first 20, but hopefully within the first 5 to 10 photos. You really want to give people that quick walkthrough, because if you don't capture them in that moment in time when they're just scrolling through the thumbnail, they're not going to click on your listing, and you're not going to get the benefit of a click through. So you're not going to improve your click through rate, which is a factor that Airbnb looks at. And that math is essentially the number of people who viewed your property by clicking it, divided by the number of impressions impressions just means how many people saw your listing on a search results page when it was loaded in.
Gotcha. You talked about the kind of goes in the rankings: title, images, and price. Price was another big one. And I feel like the way Airbnb is now, there's so many, everybody and their brother has an Airbnb wherever your properties are located. It's like there's thousands of Airbnbs. So it feels like we always have to play the pricing game. So would you mind talking for a minute about, what's you guys have a pricing engine built into Rankbreeze. How does that differ from smart pricing in Airbnb or some of the other dynamic pricing tools that are on the market? And how does that kind of play into the ranking factor that you're talking about as well?
I see. Well, pricing is a little bit of pricing is always interesting because yes, if you lower your price, you will get better rankings. That's kind of just what happens, and I don't think that there's no messing around with that. So if you do lower your prices, you will get rankings, but you will improve your rankings. However, that's sort of not really, that's not really our where we want to play, right? We want to help people earn more revenue without lowering their prices. So our dynamic pricing tool, which integrates with Hospitable, is built in we kind of built it to be as flexible as possible. So if you could think of different rules, like if my occupancy rate reaches 70%, raise my prices by 10%. That's a rule. So you can essentially add that rule into Rankbreeze in our dynamic pricing tool, and then you could stack it again further. So if my occupancy rate reaches 80%, raise my prices by another 10%, for example. So that's kind of how our pricing rule works. It works with gap nights, minimum nights. You can set these. It's very flexible. Pretty much you can think of if-then statements, and you can apply those to your to date ranges going forward, date ranges coming in as well. So you can have a staggered staggered pricing adjustments that adjust over time when the days become closer to the present day. So 10 days out, for example, you can lower your prices by 10%, $10. And then when it's 7 days in, you can again lower your prices in, and you can also adjust your minimum nights and things like that too. All that stuff is actually built into a specific season too. So you have all these custom rules that you can add, and you can have essentially one giant season for the entire year, or you can split those rules and customize them and put them into your high seasons, low seasons, shoulder seasons as well. It's pretty simple, pretty easy, and really how it works is we do the number crunching on our side, and then we push those prices out to Hospitable, and then Hospitable pushes those out to Airbnb and VRBO. And I think you guys do add like what's it called? You'll add like 15% or something like that for booking.com.
Yeah, so we can have a markup rate to Airbnb, VRBO, and booking.com. Yeah,
exactly.
So
that's what I was looking
most
for.
hosts use that to try to, get the same net. So like they want to earn the same dollar amount from each booking channel, no matter the booking fees. So we try to use a markup rate for that. Or booking.com maybe is more difficult to use than it should be, and so hosts want to earn a little bit more money for their efforts on booking.com. So that's the way they can use that. So I'm curious. So you were kind of talking about the pricing. It seems like you're maybe trying to optimize it for occupancy. So if you're if you have 70%, you're raising your prices. So you're trying to hit that sweet spot of where your occupancy should be to earn the most revenue.
I suppose that you could think of it like that. Our tool is, I guess, what we wanted to build was something that was just flexible. We wanted to build something where you could have as many levers as you wanted to do there, and you can essentially set everything up as well before going live. That was really important for us as well, is just to make sure that you're comfortable with your pricing strategy before you turn on the sync button. So everything you do, you kind of do it before you set up the sync to Hospitable. I guess before I forget, we actually have another tool which is not dynamic pricing. So we have a pricing tool that is not dynamic, and that is our competitor calendar. So if you are familiar with your multi calendar that you see in Airbnb, which is essentially your listings all laid out in a horizontal line by line setup, and then you have um, your dates that go along the time with time there. What happens is with Rankbreeze in our competitor calendar is that you can add custom competitors for each listing that you have specifically. So let's say you have listing with a view. Let's just call it that. Listing with a view here. That's your listing that you got. You can go into Rankbreeze and you can essentially add any property that you'd like, or you can look at some of the ones that are suggested when suggested to you in Rankbreeze. But you can add any custom competitor in there, and then you can look at the base rates for each individual night for against your own. So, for example, how is my rate on September 15th compared to my three closest competitors around me for the exact same day? So you can see whether they're blocked off, whether those dates are available, and what the rates are as well. So it's not dynamic; it's more surgical pricing. I like to call it.
Got it. That's pretty neat research though, to be able to have that understanding of like what are your competitors charging, what are they booked for, what are they open for. That seems pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelvin, we're almost out of time. I do want to ask you, it seems like you guys have a really neat like ranking optimization tool for generally kind of pricing, occupancy, being able to optimize your listing and a bunch of different factors. Are there anything like I know Airbnb is changing their algorithm pretty frequently, I think, to try to stay ahead of like what the market is offering. Are you guys going to be offering any sort of changes to Rankbreeze in the future that you're thinking of?
Oh, we are always always thinking of just like at Hospitable. We're always thinking of these items here. Um, I guess I'll be honest with you, Brian. I think a lot of what we have currently is is great, and uh, working on those three pillars of rank optimization, price optimization, and market analysis. Those three things for us, I think, are already core to what we offer. Um, if you're talking about different platforms, yeah, there could be potential for adding different platforms. We are definitely thinking about how that works from a design perspective too. And yeah, we definitely have some neat things coming up. I can't really tell you exactly what they are. But yeah, we are thinking about just a different evolution of our rank optimization systems. Um, but a lot of it is also thinking about how we can improve our software from a design perspective. I think that's one thing that Hospitable is great on is the design. The design of Hospitable is awesome. And I'm sure you are very well aware of that. So right now, we did a lot of expanding of our product. I think right now we're just really looking at how can we detrack things in a sense, just to make things a little bit more simple. And we are also a data company as well. So a lot of the work that we do is not really, it's just not really seen, which is kind of unfortunate. It's not really seen as much when we are out there building internal tools to check on, to make sure that the quality is good and all these sorts of things. That's a lot of our focus too, is making sure that we're building trustworthy, reliable, and transparent data too. So that is a lot of the focus at this moment in time. So I would say that a lot of it is UI improvements, UX improvements, and really thinking about how we can sharpen our existing pillars.
Got it. It makes sense. And I'll say personally, I use Rankbreeze for my listings, and it's awesome. I love using it and being able to see like the changes that I'll make in the rankings, and how that affects uh, the money that I'm making as a host or a property manager. So I definitely appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I think it's a great tool, and more hosts should be using it. So hopefully we'll pushing some people your way. But Kelvin, thanks so much. I appreciate your time. That's all the time we have today, unfortunately. I think we probably could have gone on for another 30 minutes. It seems like there's a
Yeah,
lot
we
to
didn't
this
even talk
topic.
about title optimization or
I
description
know, man.
optimization, but another time.
Well, maybe we'll do part two of the listing optimization. So yeah, well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and we'll talk later. I think it's stopping. I don't really know. It says it's
It
stopping,
says it's
but it's
like
not really doing
99%
much.
uploading. I think it's still, it says it's still recording.
That's what it does. Yeah.
So to stop the recording.
Well, yeah. So I think it goes through this, and I'm pretty sure they can edit it. I think it goes through this phase since it was a 35-minute podcast.